All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. We had an executive session was held in advance of this meeting to discuss personnel, contract, and other legal matters. If everybody could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All right, I got a first and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just the correction of the name of the volunteer, if we can make that correction. It's J.E., it's just a typo, J-E-N-N-I-E instead of J-E. Under item I, 2K.
Under I2K?
K.
Okay. All right, is there any negative votes? All right, hearing none, motion carries. Next is public comments on agenda items only. Go ahead. If you could state where you're from and your name.
I'd like to discuss the motion to approve the design and installation of synthetic playing surface at a cost not to exceed $1.2 million.
Ma'am, could you turn the, I don't think it is.
I think she just has to speak it. Just speak it. Okay. Thank you. All right. So I remember this being a topic of conversation when at that time it was deemed unsafe and without a cost benefit, and I believe the same is true today. And I tried to think of how do I want to portray this? Do I want to talk about the fact that I'm a registered nurse and various turf injuries I've seen in my past experience when I worked in the emergency room? Okay. They include lead, benzene, heavy metals, and industrial chemicals. Student athletes are exposed to these substances via multiple routes such as ingestion, inhalation, and skin contact. Studies reveal that inhalation of lead particles is a real concern for young athletes, especially smaller athletes who are closer to the surface, or athletes who, like football players, who are tackled and spend a significant amount of time on the ground. And these particles are transferred airborne. So athletes who hit the ground repeatedly will inhale and ingest more particles, and also exposure can be through skin abrasions and turf burns. So there's a potential for lead toxicity and poisoning with these. I mean, that's rare, but it can happen. Some of the substances can also be attributed as carcinogens. There's a soccer coach from the University of Washington who she personally is trying to spearhead some of these investigations because she knows of 200 female soccer players who have come down with forms of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, other leukemias and lymphomas that they're trying, and of the 200, they all played on turf surfaces. So they're looking for correlation as to whether or not these turf surfaces can be carcinogenic. The NIH reports higher rates of lower extremity injuries, ACL tears, ankle and knee sprains, with the use of synthetic turf versus natural grass. Over the last 2 years, we watched as schools closed due to the coronavirus. We watched as schools implemented social distancing and mask mandates. We watched as the reason given was to preserve and protect students' health and safety from the dangers of the viruses. Yet now there's discussion to proceed with artificial turf, which literature supports can injure children. I also see you want to take loans for $1.25 to $2.35 million, depending. Are we preparing for future remediation and maintenance costs in those loans? Supply chain issues are making materials scarce and driving up prices. Are teachers still purchasing their own classroom items out of pocket? Are we supplied with the latest textbooks? Are we ready for increasing cost of goods to create for this construction process? As inflation is increasing and the economy is struggling, is now the wisest time to take such a loan. With jobless rates increasing and people being out, that could also impact the tax base and the budget for future expenditures. That's all.
Thank you.
I had a quick question. I'm sorry. At the very beginning, you said, did you have you had 11 concussions, and were they?
No. I didn't have 11 concussions. I said I had multiple concussions. Some of them were sports related from playing field hockey and softball here. Some of them were just.
So that's what you said. You were a Susquenita graduate,
I
but
am.
then, so the concussions weren't related to you personally playing on field turf.
Some of them, no, not on turf because I play here. But I had several here playing on grass, like multiple people do, and the PIAA has lots of remediation things in place now that we didn't have in the late 90s for, the concussion pathways and stuff. But as these surfaces if they're not maintained properly and their G score declines lower than what a natural grass field would be, you're increasing the risk of students getting concussions on these fields. If they're not maintained appropriately, you're also opening up to liability because your surfaces are now more concrete-like and less natural level-like. I mean, we do all these things to protect football players as it is. They wear helmets. I mean, are we going to... Football players aren't the only people who play on that field. So we need to think of the health and safety.
Go ahead, sir.
I guess it. Oh, figures. Can you hear me? Okay. I guess it's a long
Yes.
day. Corey Stone, Penn Township. I'm glad Ann came out tonight. I had a lot of the same concerns, and as a taxpayer and as a Can you hear me? There we go. So as a constituent of the board, I've raised several things via the online submissions over the last several meetings. and I feel like my concerns just get dismissed. I may be just an idiot fireman, not an RN. I don't see these people in the hospital. But it doesn't take long to go online and realize that there are concerns with turf fields. I feel like a lot of the things that have been done lately is just ready, shoot, aim. You had a salesman in to talk about the turf field. I'm not saying the salesman lied to you. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is he is a salesman for that product. I would feel a lot better if we had somebody on the other side of the fence to at least give us the argument for or against with some other credit or with other credibility to their name. I can't wrap my head around spending over $1 million on a field. Definitely after I sat here or I sat at home and listened to the last two meetings where you talked about sinkholes in the existing field hockey field. Have we had a geological survey done? Do we know why those sinkholes are showing up? If we're spending $1.2 million, are they going to show up under the football field? Have we proven that yet? We're buying property next to the football field. The whole thing is wet. You're at the foothills of Cove Mountain. The water is going to continue coming out. I'm not saying I'm not against the field. I'm just saying, can we please do our homework a little more to make sure that we don't put $1.2 million field down and then watch it fall into the ground or not drain properly or whatever. I just had a new sand mound installed in my house. I had to make sure that it still perked correctly. If it didn't perk and drain correctly, I couldn't install it there. These are things that I'm just legitimately concerned about as a taxpayer. If we prove that the field is good and the athletes love playing on it and it's going to be safe and maintained, I'm for it. But I'm not for just, one meeting, hey, what do you think about this? Next meeting, let's talk about it a little bit. Third meeting, we're going to vote on it. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. And Ann raises a good point. I don't know what's going to happen to the tax base. And it's nice to think that we can be debt-free, but we have a lot of students who could potentially be moving into the district also. Stone Mill Estates just started. There's like 100 houses going in there. I'm sure they're not all single people with no kids. We're going to have to do something about school building expansion at some point. So I would like to hear, as your constituent, a little more in the future planning, how we're going to mitigate that stuff down the road before we just say we're putting the field there. And the other thing I noticed in the presentation was there was an average, I think it was like 10 to 15 year, or 15-year lifespan, I think was the top end. Is that right, Dr. Fox? So we went from talking about a 15-year lifespan on a field that was, I forget what the figure was. It was multiple times through the week. We went from talking about that to trying to get the field played on basically every day, which is great, fantastic to use it, but what does that then do to the lifespan of the field? Does that back us up to 14 years, 13 years, 8 years? I didn't hear anything about that. So all I'm asking you is please at least table this for tonight. Can we hear some more input on the topic and get better educated as your taxpayer constituency that we can then lend our support to the vote or at least talk to you to oppose it? Thank you.
Well, first I'll answer just a couple of things and try to get a few points of clarification. But first and foremost, you're certainly not, when you mentioned the term firefighter, thank you for your service as a frontline responder. Secondly, any company that comes in terms of field turf itself, the first thing that they will do is do, as you mentioned, soil samples. They will do a geotechnical survey to ensure that the consistency of the ground within that field before any work is conducted is set and able to adhere to turf before anything is moved forward. And in terms of supply chain, that manufacturer makes their own, so the supply chain should not be an issue under that pretense. And we did do our due diligence in terms of selecting a provider that we believe from soup to nuts should be able to provide the holistic approach from engineering and design services to being able to render an appropriate and safe playing field.
I'll turn this back on. So in that vein, let's say they come here and tear out the football field, or I'm assuming they don't tear out the whole field first. They do sampling to figure out if it's going to work. So let's assume
Correct. They'll bore a sample, and they'll be able to do that early on in the process.
But they're only sampling down to the 8 inches or so that they have to go, or how far do they go down?
Again, I'll need to check with the engineers as to the overall design concept of it. But my understanding would be they would need to go down pretty relatively deep because of the amount of layers of gravel, the geotechnical membrane that needs to go in, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, last when the salesman was here, I'm going to say around a foot or less is what he was talking about for total depth of excavation. But my question is, like, I don't know how to analyze this other than, like, for $1 million equivalency at work, we buy $1 million fire trucks. There's a lot of homework that goes into that, or should be ahead of time before we say we're going to borrow this money and buy that fire truck. That's how I see this in my eyes. Like, it's one thing to earmark the budget and say, okay, we believe this is going to cost $1.2 million. We're going to set this aside to possibly pay for that. It's another thing in my eyes, again, as a taxpayer, to say we're going to borrow $1.2 million and hope that this project works out. Again, if we have sinkholes a couple hundred yards away, how do we know that there's not, whatever's causing those is not the same thing under the stadium? Or how do we know that maybe where the field hockey field is now, maybe that's easily fixed and there's something major over here? You know what I mean? Like, I would just like to see a little more surveying done before we decide where it's
Yeah,
going to
so
go.
I think what you're asking for is that due diligence deliverance period, and that needs to be done, and that will be done by this company that comes in first. So if, in fact, it is rendered that it cannot be, then that project cannot move forward. And that will be done first and foremost, and that will be done here in the spring before anything moves forward thereof. Along with the permitting phases that need to occur, stormwater management that needs to occur, and all the other assets that come along with it, or aspects, that come along with it.
And then what happens, so if you vote tonight to do this and you borrow the money and it doesn't work, what do we do then?
Then we're going to pay back the money. Then we pay back the money with no.
And what does the contract look like? Is there, hey, this doesn't pan out, that you pay us for services rendered and then that's it, or what?
Yes, that would be my understanding.
We haven't seen that yet for sure.
The contract has been looked at and reviewed by legal. Yes.
Okay.
Just a quick question. My understanding is the sinkholes on the field hockey field are caused by wells that are under the field hockey field. To our knowledge, there are no wells under the football field, though. But but the cause of the sinkholes is because there's wells that had leaks under the field hockey field. Is that correct?
So there are a tremendous amount of geothermal wellheads located underneath the tennis courts, located underneath the current field hockey field, and a tremendous amount of geothermal wellheads that are located on the onset a little bit past the field hockey field. We have that current diagram and drawing that renders that. In terms of if, in fact, that most recent hole that was formed is from a geothermal wellhead, we're not completely sure. But at that point, it has been corrected. I think what you're certainly asking is for something I think we can all agree on, is to ensure that that ground is capable and fully rendered to be able to be used. So if you're putting a piece of synthetic turf down at the cost of $350,000 for that particular product, that it's not going to buckle and warp and sink in. And that's exactly what we all believe too. And that's the due diligence period that needs to occur within the engineering services. And I also have been told that they have built fields, and I've seen elements and renderings, as well as visited several fields, that it is in the confines of in and around a wetland, and those fields have preserved due to the the sub-base that's performed, and it's lasted several years, decades, a decade or so. And there's a few that are continuing to be used within that. So really, it's going to be that engineering design piece that's extremely important.
And is that the engineers, is that part of their company, or is that a completely third-party independent company?
At this time, it's completely a part of their company.
Can I just also add something? Mr. Stone, when you had mentioned about doing the due diligence, or maybe it was you, I'm sorry, I didn't remember your name, I apologize, about the land that we're purchasing, we did hire an engineering firm to look at that land to make sure that it's buildable or that we would be able to do something with it before we considered the purchase of that. And also, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, tonight should we proceed, we're not borrowing money tonight. We're asking them to put out a request for proposal to get us lenders that will be lending that money to us. So there is a little bit of time here to build in also that we can get that lender and then say, sorry, we're not going to borrow the 1.2, we're only going to borrow the 1.1. So by starting this process tonight, we can get that RFP out so that if we are going to keep moving on with the turf, we actually have that rolled into that request for proposal. So the borrowing isn't happening tonight. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and not to go off of Leanne, things have to be, it may seem faster to you, but, you know, we've already done some of the work, and the way that we have to do it by voting as a school board, because it's for a school, and the governing that goes with it, is we have to vote at each step of the way. So we can't have the engineer do the testing and everything until we vote for it. And then we vote to see what the money is going to look like. We're voting to see what we can get for the 2.3 or the 1. We have to vote all of those processes. So this is not, we're doing it right now and tomorrow there's going to be a field in. There's still months that, you know, the field, if everything works and if the ground works and everything, the field will be available in the fall. It's not, we're going to start digging tomorrow. But we have to approve it every step of the way. We can't spend, the superintendent can't spend money for an engineer to come out and check the field without our approval. So that's why it's done the way it's done.
Yeah, so that was kind of my concern. You know, we rapidly picked up pace on this. We went from, hey, we're going to talk about it, to then deciding this RFP was going to be issued. And from listening to the caucus meeting, it sounded like pretty much everybody was on board. There's a lot of support from the community. And again, I just want to reiterate, I'm not saying I'm against the field. I just want to make sure where we put it, if we get one, is the right place and it's constructed properly. And I know you'll find this amazing, but some places that have their own engineering firms don't exactly tell the complete truth. So that's my concern, is to make sure that that homework is done up front before we enter into a contract with the same people who are going to build the field, because it's crazy, but people will lie to you. It's amazing. So that's my concern, is that I don't want to be backed into a corner as a school district for them saying, hey, you know, everything's good, and then 5 years from now we find out not so good, because then we're still stuck with the field.
If I can make a comment, maybe ask a question. Yeah, I had similar concerns when we first started talking about this, but it's my understanding, since the board voted last month to purchase this property, if we go ahead and borrow the money for the turf, we'll be able to borrow more money. We'll be able to buy the money at a cheaper amount because of the amount that we're getting. So it makes sense, since we're looking at two very large projects, to do this, to approve the money now, because we'll be able to get it cheaper because of the quantity of money that we're getting, which helped me to understand a little more why this went a little quicker than I personally thought we were going.
Okay, anybody else?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Law from Duncannon Borough. My son is a student athlete. I was at the caucus meeting. I was at the special meeting that was on. I've talked to other members, board members. I've talked to other students. I've talked to parents. I've talked to a lot of people about this, and it's a big deal for our community. to see the community that came out for the special meeting was pretty impressive. The students that spoke, the student athletes that spoke. It doesn't just benefit the football players, it benefits the field hockey girls, it benefits the soccer kids, it benefits our youth programs that are coming up into the school. It benefits our community as in general. It can be loaned out for other community things going on, you know, charity events, different things. I do want to say I hope that you do the cooling field if you do pass it. That just makes sense in my mind. A little bit extra, and it's better for the kids. The turf is hot. But also, listening to, I know the gentleman was a salesman, but they seem to really stand behind their product. The warranty that they give with the product is for years beyond what they say it's even worth. If there is something wrong with it, I truly believe that it would be fixed. If, you know, but the due diligence behind the research and everything that's done of all the, who doesn't want that contract? So someone's going to definitely come out and give you the best presentation of what's good for them. But I don't want to just keep repeating myself, but it's good for the athletes. All of our athletes, most of them, majority of them, are honor students, high honor students, distinguished honor students. They're putting the work in their academics, and this will just help them further in their athletics as well. Especially the field hockey girls. I mean, that was huge. I really had no idea that it really inhibited them playing on grass. That was a huge eye-opener. And who doesn't deserve it for the kids? So that's all. Thank you.
So we do have one public comment from Gina Verzenda. I live in Buffalo, no, I'm sorry, I live in New Buffalo Borough, and I'm the president of the Susquenita Football Boosters. My husband and I moved to Pennsylvania in November of 2006, born and raised in Long Island, New York. We left Long Island in hopes of a better place to raise our son. For me, leaving Long Island broke my heart. My parents, following the example of my grandparents, gave us a wonderful upbringing, but due to the economic hardship, we were unable to provide that we wanted for our son. We made the decision to come to Pennsylvania. In March of 2012, we moved once again. We left York County and moved to Perry County to settle here, and settle we have. We couldn't be happier to be creating the life that we wanted to for our sons. Their involvement with the district and sports has given fruitful enjoyment to both of us. Last month, when we sat in the LGI room, I saw many familiar faces, friends, students whom I drove when I was a school bus driver, young athletes that we have both coached. But I was disturbed to learn that our young athletes needed to turn to outside of the district on a regular basis to solidify any chances of future college education for themselves due to the lack of turf field of our school district lacks. The fact that many college coaches in the country will not even consider athletes worthy of attending is dumbfounding. I know from experience that club sports can give young student athletes more experience, better speed, and more endurance, and gives them the ability to be coached by others. To have multiple coaches direct and build upon their strengths gives our youth students, athletes better ability that they can bring back to our district. But not everybody in the district has the ability to seek outside guidance for their children due to the cost. It is my hope that the school board votes yes for the turf field. We, the parents, community, district, and school board, owe it to our youth athletes the opportunity no longer to be small line of interest in the local papers. Many people do not consider Susquenita athletes, not the school district, worthy of their attention. Even when the football team does win a game on Friday night, our young athletes are not part of the highlight reel. and the other team who lost is more deserving of the camera time. For future projects than of our own children in the district. By voting yes for the turf field, we're opening the doors for our athletes, for all of our students, and you have the ability to bring money to the district by renting out the turf field for tournaments and our younger sports programs who could and want to participate in their games under the lights in our home stadium. Thank you. All right, that's the end of public comments. The one thing that I do want you to understand is that when we purchased the land and as we move into this turf, it looks like we did it all in a couple weeks. But Dr. Fox, I'm not exactly sure, but when did you talk to the first turf company?
November.
So, and we talked to 3 or 4?
3.
We talked to 3 other turf companies. This is the highest recommended turf field in the country. And they also have the lowest G factor. Is that the correct term I'm using? They also have the lowest G factor, which is actually softer than grass when you put in their field properly. And we will have the field tested yearly by a third-party vendor who will test the G factor. Is that correct?
Yeah, it'll be GMAX tested yearly, not the first year after installation, but the second year moving forward. GMAX testing will occur, and basically what they'll do is kind of grid the system, put in different mechanisms throughout the field to measure it, and it will be done by an independent provider. It will not be done by the installer. And any of those ratings that come back, then we'll add infill as appropriate as the years move on.
And the 1.2 that we budgeted that not to go over does cover the cooling play turf, which I think drops the temperature by a good amount. And relatively, that was cheap. It's only like $40,000, which I was worried when they talked about it that last week or whatever that was, that it was going to be like $200,000 or $300,000, but it's actually relatively cheap for our field. All right, moving on. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes for the following meetings: January 11th, January 24th, and February 1st.
So moved.
Second.
First and a second, is there any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, is there any negative votes? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, next is 6, presentations, student representative reports.
Sorry, guys. So it's been a pretty busy month for the high school. There's a lot of stuff getting kick-started and starting around. So I guess I'll first start with the floor hockey tournament. That is being held on February 25th at 5 p.m. It lasts pretty much the entire night. Students are really excited for this event, and it'll be good to see it back after it not being around last year. The fall play is also happening at the end of March, March 25th, 26th, and 27th. The students are working really, really hard to make it a great show, and I think, from what I've been hearing, the students really enjoy it, and they're excited. Coin Wars is also happening all throughout February. All the money goes to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and as of Monday, the cafeteria staff were actually in the lead. So shout out to our cafeteria staff. Mini-thon is happening March 5th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We had a kickoff assembly 2 weeks ago, and I think it was a really big hit. We had Family Feud. We had eating donuts off of floor hockey sticks. It was quite interesting to watch. Chuck-a-Duck. Chuck-a-Duck happened Saturday. I believe over $3,000 were raised for the Ronald McDonald House. It was a big success, and we got lots of compliments on how organized it was. College in the high school is happening. It's being held through Lackawanna College, And I believe Mr. Funk said he gave out 35 applications for over 50 courses, so that's really impressive. And applications are due to Mr. Funk by February 17th. So if you have any children in the high school, maybe encourage them to check it out. And lastly, we've got a new event. I don't think it's ever happened before, and it's the Winter Formal. It's being sponsored by Spanish National Honor Society. No outside guests are allowed, and it will be held in the middle school gym. It's going to be held on March 5th, and I believe tickets were on sale today, and they will be on sale for the next few weeks, and they are $10 each. So it's been fun.
Question, not for you, for Mr. Quigley and Mr. Fortelka. I was a little bit surprised to hear that the floor hockey marathon is moving back to February inside, because I heard so much talk last year about success of having it outside in May. Was that any consideration given to keeping it outside in May?
I can probably answer that one.
Oh, okay.
Just from the booster part of the field hockey, part of the reason why they moved it back inside was the issue of weather, and having it in May was really difficult to try to pull that weekend out with conflicts between senior trip, prom. The track and field coaches weren't real happy about having the field hockey floor tournament going on a week before districts. So a couple of things, and I think that's the reason why they decided to move it back inside.
Okay.
But I agree. It was a huge success outside. Kids loved it, but I think there was a lot of other moving parts.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, at this time, one of the highlights of our board meetings, as well as our student reports, but it's also the student spotlight, where we get an opportunity to kind of invite students to showcase some of their integration of their curriculum that is occurring throughout each different building. So tonight, I'm going to hand over the microphone to Mr. Mark Fortelka, our assistant principal at the high school, to introduce our guests and to talk a little bit about the program this evening.
Sure, thank you, Dr. Fox. So I'm pleased to introduce two of our bright high school students here. So once you guys start coming down, so we have Mr. Michael Singley and Mr. James Dell. So these two individuals have really taken it upon themselves to, I don't feel like it's too much of a stretch here to really become experts with our 3D program here. And I don't want to give too much of it away, but their plan is to talk about, the basics of 3D printing, the overall importance and how it's impacting society right now and potentially in the future as well.
Is this on? All right, sweet. Well, good afternoon, fellow school board members and parents of possible students who live in the district. It's great to have you here. I'd also like to personally thank Dr. Fox. He's jumped in a couple times throughout the day when me and James are after lunch and seen what we're doing. Also, my mom. Hi, Mom. She's really been very helpful with just giving me the confidence and coming up to this meeting saying, hey, you're basically doing what you're doing. So, to start off, James, would you like to bring over the 3D printer? We do not have it plugged in right now, but this is our 3D printers that we mainly use in the school. We have two of them. This is the MakerBot Replicator Plus. It is around $2,000. So we got the best of the best. And thanks for the older school board members or current possible school board members who purchased these two. And I believe there's one more in the elementary school. So these three to give us students who are interested in 3D printing the experience. James, would you like to give a couple statistics of the 3D printer?
All right, so the 3D printer, as Michael said, is about $2,000. It has a build plate of 11.6 inches by 6.6 inches and a height of 7.6 inches, which is pretty big for a 3D printer. it prints at a pretty good quality. It runs on the MakerBot PLA type filament, which we have a roll right here if you would like to pass that around. Each roll of that is about $50. It is about 2.2 kilograms and has a diameter of 1.5 millimeters, which is what the printer runs on. The printer also heats up to about 210 degrees Celsius to melt the plastic down and print whatever we are printing. How we import it is we find a STL file, which is like a online design, which someone designs, and we import that to our MakerBot site where we change the size, make it the good scale, and then we press print, and the printer does the rest of the work. The STL files are majorly like a code that way the printer knows exact movements on where to go, how to work, and what to print, when to stop printing, when the build plate has to go down and up, and that's pretty much it.
Just throwing in a little bit of background information on our 3D printer. If you were wondering where the filament is actually in, we have this neat little setup where you insert the filament and you put the filament through this red tube, and it follows this clear line all the way down to the extruder. The extruder is actually held on by a magnet, so here is what the extruder looks like, and this is what heats up the plastic, obviously. Well, not obviously, but we're just standardized for this, but that is what heats up the plastic. And the tip of it, like James said, gets around 210 to 215 degrees Celsius, which in Fahrenheit is around 440 to 460 degrees. So I have touched that, and I haven't told you, Mom. So sorry. It's pretty bad. It's like touching the cookie sheet right out of the oven. But, you know, you heal. You're humans. The interesting thing about this 3D printer is very standard with most, is there are mechanisms driven by belts that are hooked onto the extruder that move it in the XY direction, which is X direction and Y direction, so forward and back if you're looking at a 2D image. And then the Z direction, which gives it that three-dimensional feature, is actually powered by this screw. Don't know if everyone can see it, but this screw in the very back that actually pulls the build plate up. So as you're building your object, the build plate slowly moves down and allows you to take your thing off. A little bit of background information also might help. The first standardized 3D printer that we see in today's world as this basic thing is invented by Charles W. Hall in the mid-1980s. So it was very interesting to see that this technology is sort of new, considering more automotive, airplane, and architectural designs that are seen in today's standards. That's majorly the history of it. And we do have a couple things here that we have 3D printed. So we will go over the basics of how we do this 3D printing for fun. So here we have an X-Wing fighter from Star Wars. We 3D printed this in school colors for Mr. Funk. So I will pass this around. He's a very big Star Wars fan. And me and James also do our own custom 3D designing off of a website called Tinkercad. There are several other better formats to do this 3D printing off of, but Tinkercad is very elementary
It's very simple.
Yeah, it's very simple and elementary for beginner students like us. So we actually 3D printed and designed this stand for Mr. Funk's X-Wing. So we'll also Another thing I personally designed, every single National Honor Society induction ceremony, the students are given out cardboard cutouts of keys, and they actually never get to keep them. So when our school budgeted kindly to afford some gold filament, I made a prototype of an official National Honor Society key, fully 3D printed, that we could individually give every student every year they came in. And since it is saved in Tinkercad, the ease of repeating and printing this could be done every single year until hopefully another student gets past 3D printing down onto would maybe do something better with it or have better technology, they could do it faster. So I'll pass this around as well. So 3D printing isn't mainly just for fun, as most people can assume. 3D printing also helps with more advanced techniques, like they make 3D printers now that are 3D printing concrete structures. So it makes the ease of having closer homes, but also very structurally sound homes in places on islands that might not have the ability or being hit by hurricanes to be built with solid concrete structures. So those 3D printers are out there. And then 3D printers are also going into more mobile uses, like I believe it was 2018 is when the first fully 3D printed car came out. Recently, in October, the first 17-foot 3D printed boat actually got to float in a pool with a running motor. So that's another application. And I believe there's a country who is working on a very light two-person 3D printed plane that they might personally test to show the extent of how 3D printing can benefit. But not just in the big ways, but in the small ways, 3D printing is also starting to benefit people that are disabled. So here, this is an older design, but this was here before I was even in the high school. But this is a 3D printed hand for someone who lost their hand, possibly in war. And this has all the abilities to link up cables to work like a normal hand, and then it's all the robotics that would actually make this work like a true hand. So if you would like to pass this around too. And and we also do 3D printing just for storage stuff. So I got to kindly borrow a caliper from my mom through her testing, and I 3D printed this. We 3D printed this caliper case to keep it nice and secure so students would not mess with it. So I don't know if you guys would like to see this as well, but that is the so
We're also doing a lot of stuff with our computer club. Recently, they're going to have a Super Smash Brothers tournament, and we've been asked to 3D print them some trophies for that. So our staff and students are getting on 2/7, 3D printing a lot of stuff. More students that way they can see how it works and flying with some trophies.
Michael, can you explain what you did for Mrs. Valzerano? That was kind of a quick, needed response for the funnel experiment.
Okay, question. 3D printing. How has this benefited the two of you individually, James and Michael?
So individually, James, would you like to go first?
Individually, this has taught me a ton about technology and how it is advanced and how we have the possibility to create anything. Turning a simple piece of plastic into any design I would feel like having is amazing. It saves you a ton of money and it gets you that product that you want. For example, Mr. Funk's X-Wing. I don't want to go out and I don't want to purchase a model of an X-Wing. I can have that model in a couple of hours, which is amazing. And I can simply turn anything into pretty much anything.
What is your career interest? What do you want to do after high school?
I want to go into education.
Okay.
I want to be a teacher.
Okay.
And for me personally, I'm along with James, seeing the technology grow in 3D printing. Some personal projects I'm working right now is my dad, who's right there. He had an old 18 Jeep from the 80s or 90s, and I accidentally broke it one year, so I feel bad. But I've started 3D printing parts where I'm doing custom links on remote control axles, which I'm into remote control hobbies. And I'm actually fully 3D printing a base to this body to be able to turn it into a remote control car so I can give it back to him, hopefully by the end of this year. So you can have something to always remember me by.
Okay. Very, very impressive presentation, boys. Oh, and what is your career interest, Michael?
My career interest is mainly mechanical engineering.
Okay.
I have applied to the Coast Guard Academy, so if I do hopefully get in there, I would be aiming more towards naval architecture and marine engineering.
Okay. So this is right up your alley here, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Okay. Thank you.
So certainly while you're cleaning up and grabbing your materials, I wholeheartedly thank you for your presentation and your time and your commitment. And you know, time and time again, we talk about the 4 C's, and I will again highlight that in this presentation. You know, a tremendous amount of communication between you two, communication in terms of planning for this presentation, your abilities to collaborate together, and your abilities to collaborate with others, finding problems, being able to solve problems through the use of this technology, and your critical thinking that also goes into this, as well as, most importantly, the creativity that goes in. So all of these harnessed together are exactly what we want in terms of a curriculum. So once again, thank you for the presentation. Thank you for modeling this. Thank you for what you do for the school community, and it's exciting. And young man, I love to hear that you want to be a teacher. I think it's time that you and I have a conversation, and I write down your name now, and we start to seriously have a conversation and plan for the future. So, and of course we can always talk too, but most importantly the education. And with all due respect, no, I think, you know, again, outstanding job in your presentations, and thank you very much.
All right, next is 7 Finance. Looking for a motion to move the treasurer's report and the payment of orders.
So moved.
Second.
All right, got a first and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have to object to something here. Don't I? What's the right term?
Abstain? All right, is there any negative votes?
I need to abstain from check number 7040.
And I need to abstain from, which one is it going to be?
It's on your paper.
I gotta find my paper, that's the problem.
Anybody else? Okay.
7055.
All right, motion carries. Number 8 is a motion to approve the CPCTC budget for Cumberland Perry Career and Technical Center for 2022-2023, which reflects contribution from Susquenita School District in the amount of $474,029.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I got a first and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing no discussion, is there any negative votes? All right, hearing none, motion carries. Next is number 9, a motion to approve field turf Target Sports Company to design and install synthetic playing surface in our stadium through Keystone Purchasing Network at a cost not to exceed $1.2 million.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I got a first and a second. Is there any other discussion?
Just a comment. Excuse me. I know I was unable to attend the meeting when this was discussed. It was mentioned tonight that suggested that we might table this. Are there any cons or pros to tabling this motion?
The only con to tabling this motion, it's a great question, is the timeline in order for us to go out to RFP, a request for proposal for bank loans, because of the need to close on the 418 Schoolhouse Road, it would then therefore not provide us the opportunity to go out for this funding source for this particular project. It would only be exclusively for 418 Schoolhouse Road. That would be the only negative at this time.
No, fair enough. And I do appreciate that we did have a community meeting set aside specifically to talk about this, because it is a large purchase, and it is, there are a lot of concerns about safety and health and other things for our athletes. So I'm glad we did that. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, if you could do a roll call vote.
Dr. Rubish?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt?
Yes.
Mrs. Singley?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Carmo?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
And Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to number 10. We need a motion to approve A. The Board of School Directors of Susquenita School District hereby authorizes the administration to work with PFM to advise financial advisors to go out for a bond counsel and solicit the proceeds with the issuance of a bank RFP in the approximate amount of $2.35 million for the purpose of funding capital projects, including the purchase of property at 418 Schoolhouse Road and the synthetic turf field for the stadium.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a first and a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Lehman, can you explain why B is no longer one of the choices?
B is no longer a choice because we have decided to move forward with the turf field, so we're borrowing the money for the turf field also, which in hope will get us a lower interest rate. Any other discussion? All right, can I have a roll call vote on this too, please?
Mr. Carmo?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt? Dr. Rubish?
Yes.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Singley?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, number 11, personnel. I'd like a motion to move A through J.
So moved with regrets for B.
Second.
Everybody let me know after you had the chance to read over those 2.5 pages.
I'm just going to have to abstain from I to J. I think that's the right way to say it.
If you want Mr. Carmo, you could vote no and explain to us why you don't recommend yourself for the job. All right. Is there any negative votes? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, number 12, a contract to approve Harrisburg Area Community College sponsorship agreement for the 2022-2023 financial year through 2026-2027 financial year.
So moved.
Second.
I already got a first and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. Let's do a roll call again. We're on a roll tonight.
Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Carmo?
Yes.
Mrs. Singley?
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt? Dr. Rubish?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Mr. Lehman?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, 13, looking for a motion to approve the class trip of 2022 to Pocono Valley, Pennsylvania, Thursday, May 19th, to participate in recreational activities.
A question
So
here.
moved.
Question, isn't that the day of the senior awards? Let me pull out my paper here, because I filled that out today to turn it in. May 19th?
Can we get a motion in a second
Okay.
first? so we can
Second.
discuss it? Thank you.
Now discussion.
Okay, yeah, isn't that the day of the senior awards?
He second.
Thursday, May 19th, 6:30 PM. I was surprised to see, Mr. Fortelka, I was surprised to see the date that was on a Thursday, because it's always been on a Monday in the past. I'm going to guess this date is supposed to be the 16th and not the 19th for the senior awards.
You might be right. I know on my calendar, I do have it as being on that Thursday. So it's potential that it is incorrect, but I'm happy. As far as I know, I hadn't put that connection together. So I'm happy to look into that and get back to you.
Yeah, I think we need to do that.
If we approve this tonight for the 19th, can we approve it underneath the criteria of that, then that it would not conflict with senior awards, that we could move that senior awards?
I think it can just be tabled until, I can change my motion to table it until next month.
Well, I'm wondering,
do they
I'm
need to know
wondering
it?
if the purchasing of tickets,
Yeah, that's what I'm
buses, all of
wondering.
that. So I would suggest it made me, Mrs. Kelly, be willing to amend the motion to approve the senior trip, and then we could approve the date perhaps at a later time.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll work.
I amend my motion to approve the class trip of 2022 to Pocono Valley, Pennsylvania, for a date to later be determined to participate in recreational activities.
A second.
All right, I got a first and a second. Is there any other discussions? All right, hearing none. Is there any negative votes? All right, hearing none, motion carries. All right, number 14, a motion to accept the donation in the amount of $1,400 from the Duncannon American Legion to be applied to delinquent lunch accounts in the elementary school.
So moved.
Second.
Got a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, is there any negative votes? Motion carries.
Just once again, we'd like to thank the Duncannon American Legion for their donation, and thank you for all you do for our community and your service.
Okay, next is update Dr. Rubish.
Okay.
And I would try to say it, but I already did it successfully once. I don't
Okay.
want to screw
This is
myself up.
CTC first, right?
Yes.
I'm on there twice. Okay. What's new at Cumberland Perry Career and Technical Center? There will be no builder's show this year. In the past, the students have usually built a house within the farm show, and I think there's no show at all this year. That's why they're not doing it. Applications, they have over 900 applications so far for approximately 506 openings. So Career and Technical Center education is very popular in our area. Negotiation with the faculty over there of a contract continues.
Do we know how many of those applications are from Susquenita for next year?
We don't have that. It won't be 506.
Obviously. I just want to know if we're keeping pace with what we've done in the past.
We usually have a lot, a bigger proportion of our students than other schools do. Okay.
All right, next.
Okay, Susquenita Blackhawk Foundation. This fall, 50 years ago, Susquenita Elementary School opened its doors for the first time. And in recognition of that, the Susquenita Blackhawk Foundation is going to be sponsoring an art contest. The art contest will have 4 winners on it. We'll have one for an elementary student, one for middle school, one for high school, and the 4th one will be independent. It could be an alumni, a faculty member, community member, school board member. Anybody wants to put together a drawing, and we'll have 4 winners. There'll be a $100 prize for each, and they'll be determined in April. And we're going to take the winners, and we're going to put them on T-shirts and coffee mugs and who knows what all. All profits made by selling the T-shirts will go to the Susquenita Blackhawk Foundation for student projects in the future. The other thing we have going on right now is, and this is such exciting news, we got approval a couple weeks ago for a makerspace room in the elementary school. And I'm going to try to explain what a makerspace room is, and Dr. Fox, you can jump in when I don't quite get it right. A makerspace room is science, technology, engineering, and math. It is almost like a lab room, or what else would you call it? Almost like an industrial arts room where kids can go in and they can work with their hands and make projects out of these different materials that help explain those principles of science, technology, engineering, and math. How'd I do?
I think you did really well.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think an example of the culmination of that is what we saw tonight.
Right.
With James and Michael.
Yeah.
And the idea is kind of backing, allowing, and it could be anything from popsicle sticks, cotton balls, cardboard, to as elaborate as the utilization of a 3D printer. So
Yeah.
thank you. Nice job.
We want to give credit to Sarah Bear for this because it was her idea to do this, and she's just been a wonder, things that she's been able to do down at the elementary school. Okay, that's it for me.
So I did end up getting the numbers. So we have 57 applicants this year, the vast majority of them being freshmen, with about a quarter of them being sophomores.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next is the meeting schedule. We have a caucus meeting on March the 1st, and a regular board meeting will be on March the 8th, both at 7 o'clock in the LGI room. Draft meeting schedule for the board review on 2022-2023. And we'll have a motion to approve that next month, but if everyone can check that out in the meantime. And Informational items, dispose of Knobs walk behind scrubber, it's in poor condition, a Knobs vacuum cleaner, and 2 hand sanitizer units that are broken. All right, administrative reports.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to once again kind of echo what was presented at caucus meeting, which is February being Career and Technical Education Month. CTE education provides students with not only hands-on training, but also the wholehearted training that prepares students for college and career readiness. We are proud to have currently around 63 students from our high school participate in the 20-plus programs at Cumberland Perry Career and Technical Center. I think we would be repressed not to thank CPCTC and our Joint Operation Committee member, Dr. John Rubish, for all of his support in preparing our students with the skills and knowledge needed for the dynamic and ever-changing global workforce. So thank you for your commitment to CPCTC, and thank you to everybody for your commitment, because again, they are our partner with us, we are a partner with them, and it's a great relationship, and those students providing, again, that stacking credentials. February also is National School Counselors Month, so I think it's imperative that I thank all of our school counselors this month for all they do each and every day. And school counselors wear just a variety of different roles, and day in and day out that they work in tandem with our administrators, work in tandem with our teachers and our parents, and just a variety of different roles, from academic to social, to just enhancing the overall learning environment for our students. So we have some great ones, and we appreciate all they do each and every day. And while I'm at thanks, I think this is a good time. We're at about the halfway point, right? This is kind of halftime. So I think it's important at halftime, and not to be, right around Super Bowl time, right, to thank our entire school district staff. And I think that's really a needed entity right now. And, let's kind of go down the list, because our bus drivers are pulling and helping and assisting each other like no other. And Roar has been a great partner to ensure that day in and day out, our students arrive safely, happy, and ready to learn. And that's important and imperative. Our cafeteria staff that provide delicious and nutritious meals, and I'm a product of that. I've put more weight on in the last few 100 days than ever, but I'm happy, I think I'm healthy, and I'm certainly well fed. So, but seriously, on a serious note, what they do each and every day, they're a part of our team and our family. Our custodians, and time again, they are here ensuring, working extra, working long hours to provide for the cleanliness of our building, for our overall health and safety, and they also provide for each and every activity that goes on too. I'd like to provide our maintenance staff, again, repairing, ensuring that the beautiful infrastructure that we're in currently is up to the standards that we have. The instructional aides, working collaboratively with our teachers and our students day in and day out. We can't have enough of them. So if you're out in the community and you want a great job working directly with our students in an awesome environment, please email me, call me directly. I will help you, and let's get you started working in a great place. So thank you to our instructional aides, to our teachers. Time and time again, we can't thank you enough for what you do. You are the weather maker. You control all of what happens within the classroom, and we thank you. It can't be said too many different times. So again, to the community, if you haven't recently, thank a teacher. Thank a teacher for what they do, and not just during the hours that they're here, going above and beyond each and every time to provide for the needs of our students. To our administrators, to our administrative team, I've been blessed to work with a great team. And just again, our job to remove as many barriers so our teachers and our instructional aides and our staff have the ability to continue to provide that high impactful learning. So we thank you. And a great example tonight with James and Michael and Taryn, and unfortunately Cadence wasn't here this evening, here tonight. But that's an example of why we do what we do. And we have incredible students. We really do. And what we do each day and the decisions that we make, which are very, very difficult time and time again, and the community support that we receive is just incredible, because what we do is for them, and I can't thank them enough. So together, we're going to continue that second half momentum. We're going to continue after this halftime and continue to drive forward and finish this second half stronger than we finished the first half, because we are stronger together. And I wholeheartedly believe that, and thank everybody for their support. Wouldn't be without congratulations to Pico Choir under the direction of Mrs. Weaver and Mrs. Flowers for a great event on Saturday. If you were here Saturday, it was a booming event with basketball games, with choir events. It was just outstanding. And thank you to Mr. Brokos and Mrs. Black for all of the support that they provided for the Chuck-a-Duck and the funds that they raised. Not only just the monetary, but raise awareness for the good work that the Ronald McDonald House does for the greater central Pennsylvania area. And once again, thank you to everybody for your support. And I just want to add one comment today, because I think it's a great point, about ensuring that after the geotechnical study is conducted and ensuring that the field, that the ground is suitable for synthetic turf. One of the things that we're going to do is ensure within the contract that we write that there's a favorable geotechnical finding before we move forward with any project. So thank you for noting that, and we'll ensure that it's noted in the contract.
Let anybody else talk.
All right, at this time, let's turn it over to Dr. Herman.
Thank you, Dr. Fox. There we go. Couldn't get it first. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple things. First, yesterday our newest school psychologist, Lynn Murphy, started with us. So that's obviously a huge help to the department and to our students. She jumped right in already yesterday and really started. So we welcome her, and we're thankful that she's here. Dr. Fox said it's halftime, but we are already within special education looking at a couple things a few months out from now. And a couple of those examples are our extended school year service and the transition of our early intervention students, which are our youngest students coming into kindergarten for next year. So we've already had some of those meetings, and some of the preliminary organization of those two services started already. So that's a good thing, because then we can keep organized and make sure we have everything set up for them for the next year. But other than that, the department's just kind of trucking along and doing the best we can, and definitely proud of everyone that's working. You know, this is an easy time of the year, I think, maybe to burn out a little bit, but our department seems to have a lot of enthusiasm still, and we have a lot of teachers asking a lot of great questions and really advocating for their students. So I think overall, just a big thank you to the department in general.
Thank you, Dr. Herman. And before we get to athletics, real quickly, it's hard to believe there's one thing I did forget. I would be repressed under personnel not to, once again, thank Tammy Forbes, Mary Stees, Donna Kerstetter, and James Yinger. If we were to look and combine roughly, that's 120 years of service to our district, committed service. They're going to be very difficult to replace, and we wish them all the best in retirement. And please know we do have substitute teaching positions available if they are, in fact, interested. Athletics?
Good evening, everyone. Just overall, our winter seasons are wrapping up. The last regular season games are next week. Our girls are wrapping up our home regular season this evening, and they're currently up 12, depending on that shot. Our girls are also right now 4th in the district in AAA basketball. And if that holds true, we will host the girls' district first-round basketball game on February 22nd. We are hosting wrestling sectionals on Saturday the 19th. That's a big thing. That's the kickoff of the individual wrestling state tournament. And it's hard to believe, but March 7th is the official start date of spring sports. So we're wrapping down winter and gearing up for the spring.
Thank you, Mr. Quigley. And thank you also for jumping in and also doing some coaching as well here in the winter. So at this time, we'll turn it over to Buildings and Grounds, Mr. Scott Howell.
Good evening, folks. Board, thank you for getting me more staff tonight. Outstanding. I want to kudos with Dr. Fox with the custodial and maintenance staff. Busted butt for the last 6 to 8 months, being understaffed, the maintenance department stepped up, did a lot of cleaning in-house. I told them tomorrow is their last day they can clean in high school. They're very disappointed, but yeah, looking forward for the new employees to start tomorrow. We're still hiring. Anybody that needs a job, please see the website. Thank you.
All right, at the business office, what we're currently doing is we are rocking and rolling in terms of still preparation for the ongoing budget. We hope at caucus to have kind of what we talked about, that 30,000 foot view, and be able to present where we are at right now. And I would like to thank also Mrs. Nikki Moore for her assistance in our operations, continuing to support us, as well as Mr. Kenneth Medina for his support as we continue the day-to-day operations within our business office. And also, again, Mrs. Tammy Feltenberger, Mrs. Karen Pinson, and Mrs. Tricia Wisen for all of their support, too, day in and day out to keep our operations running. All right, elementary school, Mrs. Comp.
All right, it is Love Week at the elementary school. Valentine's is obviously a very big deal for us, and we are celebrating this week. We know you're confused because Valentine's is Monday, but we certainly feel it is better to get our kids all sweetened up right before the weekend. So we are celebrating. Katie Whitaker has done a wonderful job planning a spirit week for us this week. Tomorrow is Love Our School Day, so wear your black and orange. We'll be getting ready for the Super Bowl with Love Your Team, and then wearing our Valentine's Day colors on Friday to kick off Random Acts of Kindness Week that will happen next week. And that's been planned by our wonderful counselors, Mr. Andrew Schaefer and Mrs. Brittany Block. And of course, we have to shout out to them and all their wonderful hard work because it is National School Counselors Week. I also want to say thank you to Mr. Schaefer, who last week planned for us our high five incentive. We played bingo all day on Monday at the elementary school. Different grade levels rotated through the cafeteria. This was our high five incentive. Of course, you all know our high five values at the elementary school that we feel it's so important to uphold. And the middle of the year is a great time for a refresher. There was a video to talk about overall expectations and behavior at the elementary school, how we're doing, where we're going, what we want to do next, what we want to see moving forward, and of course, a lot of fun prizes. We just finished up our Pto Book Fair, and I personally spent a lot of money on books for school and for home, so we love the book fair. We want to say thank you to Mary Stees. I know you've hired other people on a consultancy rate. I personally believe I don't know what I don't know until Mary Stees walks out the door. We may be in trouble. So we really thank her. She has a lot of expertise. She's the glue that holds our building together, and our guard dog at the front door. So we certainly love her and wish her the best in retirement. And then Mrs. Kerstetter, the same to her. I always say she is strong where I am weak. And she has such high expectations for our students, our teachers. She builds them up. She has great resources to share. She's been doing a lot of exceptional things this year to include movement and agility breaks within the classroom and just to drive our title team forward. So congratulations to both ladies on 29 years of service, and we will really, really miss them. And then last but not least is we need your help. Kindergarten registration time is upon us, so if you or anyone in the community, your neighbor, knock on their door. If they have a child that was born September 1st, there will be 5 this upcoming year. We need them to see our webpage, fill out our survey, and then we'll tell them everything else they need to know. So we are certainly looking for our up-and-coming kindergartners. Thank you.
Thank you, and let's hand it over now to middle school, and thank you, Mr. Ken Ward. I believe this is day officially number? 2. So way to kind of jump right in. But anybody who knows Mr. Ward, he's no stranger. He's been to a lot of different events, a lot of different meetings, and really I give him kudos. He's immersed himself even prior to his official start date. So, Mr. Ward, thank you.
Dr. Fox. First, I just want to introduce myself, Ken Ward. As of yesterday, I'm officially a Blackhawk. It was a good transformation over the weekend. Just a few announcements here. On February 11th, we will be hosting an assembly called Minding Your Mind. This assembly will be presented by our school counselors and will include all the middle school students. Going along with that, speaking of counselors, I just wanted to shout out to Ms. Bigley and Mr. Klingersman. They do a great job in the middle school. In the short time I've gotten to know them, it's evident they're amazing at what they're doing in the school. On February 15th, 16th, and 18th, Mr. Black and myself will be holding class meetings with each grade level to discuss expectations and best practices for students to be successful for the remainder of the school year. This is just a reminder that on February 17th, that's an Act 80 day. It's going to be an early dismissal. Car riders are going to be dismissed at 11:10 a.m. and bus riders will be dismissed at 11:20 at the middle school. This is another reminder that on February 21st, there is no school due to the President's Day holiday. And on February 25th, Susquenita Middle School will be presenting our 4th lesson on digital citizenship called Privacy and Security. And the last thing I wanted to bring up was to congratulate a couple different groups here. The first group would be the County Band and County Choir. We wanted to congratulate them on their performance over the past few weeks. We also wanted to congratulate the middle school cheerleaders who competed and took first place in their competition over the weekend in Dallastown. This isn't a cheerleading team from the school, but SMFA, and they, like I said, participated and won their competition in Dallastown. Lastly, we wanted to congratulate all the middle school students that participated in winter sports and the coaches as well. It was great to go out and watch these young men wrestle and play basketball through the winter. And when there's not a whole lot to do outside, it was great to come inside and watch them play.
Thank you very much. And we'll turn it over now. High school, Mr. Fortelka.
Good evening, everybody. As usual, Taryn did a great job tonight, so I'm going to do my best to keep my list pretty short. Just want to give a quick update on the student custodial program. So after, I think applications were open for about 2 weeks, and we ended up with 9 successful applications. So we're going to start interviewing, I believe, early next week with the hope of getting them in as soon as possible. But I've been thrilled with the students that have come out and being interested in that. A lot of them were thrilled at the prospect because transportation, being the biggest issue, that's one area that we've been able to help them out with. So more updates to come after we do those interviews. Like Taryn was saying, there's a lot of activities coming up, especially for seniors. Moving forward, the year is going to progress very, very quickly. We have mid-marking period coming up next week already. And like Mr. Ward said, we have parent-teacher conferences as well. This round, parents will be able to reach out directly to teachers to schedule those conferences. Again, to reiterate what they're saying, a big shout out to our school counselors. They're the glue that hold things together, and words can't express how much we appreciate them. And looking back and seeing Tammy Forbes and Mr. Yinger's names up there, that's going to be very, very difficult, and they'll be sorely missed moving forward. I think that my hope is as we progress forward and we see our seniors moving forward, really taking a time to recognize everything that they've done for this school and this community is going to be important to make sure that their legacy lives on after them. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And we'll round out with technology. Mrs. Matash.
Sure, thank you. Good evening. First, I would like to thank Michael and James for showcasing how our high school students are transforming learning with the technology in the district. Second, just as we're looking at the second half of the year and looking towards even next school year, I want to remind our families that we do have a Susquenita blended cyber program, and some of the benefits of our blended cyber program are that the students do graduate with a Susquenita high school degree, or graduate from Susquenita High School. They're eligible for dual enrollment. They're able to attend Cumberland Perry Area and Technical Center. They do receive technology from the technology department, the iPad, hotspots if necessary. A lot of our high school courses are taught by our teachers in Canvas. The ones that aren't, we do use Kaola to support us. and Kayla supports us at the middle and elementary schools. Along with promoting our blended cyber program, something that we are looking at doing is creating our own logo. So we have asked our high school art students to design a logo, and once they have those logos created, we're going to do a vote on the logo that our community, the students, school board, staff would like to see moving forward, that logo for the blended cyber. And we've also asked our media students to create some promotional videos, students who have participated in the cyber program, teachers, past parents, just to talk about some of the benefits and how our cyber program has helped them further past after graduation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is board reports. At this time, are there any board members wishing to provide any reports or comments tonight?
Of course, I would. Go ahead. No, go
Just
first.
one quick thing. You know, Dr. Fox thanked a lot of people, but nobody thanked him. So I was, I really thank you for the leadership you've shown since you started this year. So just, really appreciate all the work you've been doing, and you can really see a transformation, I think, since you started.
Thank you. Ms. Singley?
Just a couple of things. In terms of the retirements, I know first week they will all be sorely missed, as Mrs. Comp brought up and others. But one of the things I think Dr. Rubish brought up last week was the replacing of Mr. Yinger in technology education, and would that be something we would look to do? And I wanted to share that night I went home and my son gave me this beautifully wood-turned bowl that he made in wood materials too. I mean, like really good. I was like, did you really make this? And I just think about, he's a kid that's going into engineering, not necessarily something he's going to do with the rest of his life, but it provides a part of his day that is completely different in a type of learning. And I would really hope that we as a board would want to support keeping that position and keeping that kind of an offering at our high school moving forward. Also, I was also able to attend the NHS Chuckaduck night that night. And while Dr. Fox mentioned it was a pretty busy night that night because we had choir people coming down in their black dresses to the gym after the choral concert was done. So there was a lot happening, but that's exciting to have here at Susquenita. And the kids did earn a lot of money or raise a lot of money for the Ronald McDonald House, but I think it's important to note that they did that in cooperation with West Perry High School. So it was really a dual effort between the two high schools and brought together. And so that was a great night. And then just finally, the presentation tonight, while I'm biased, because I had a little bit of, was my kid, I just hope we keep those coming, because I know when the young students came here from the elementary school, there were things that I didn't realize were happening in the elementary school. I mean, I knew about the 3D printer because that stuff comes home, and he asked for Santa to give him 3D printer filament for Christmas, so I purchased some of it. Well, I didn't, Santa did, but you know what I mean. But I think that there's people, I think we think of 3D printing as being this sort of engineering thing. It was really refreshing to hear that James is considering a career in education, which isn't what you think of when you think of 3D printing, but he's utilizing what he's learning there to maybe to be able to bring into the classroom someday. So I just really hope that we keep those coming to us, because it's really helpful for us as a board to get a real understanding of what's going on in all of our schools. So just, thank you for that. I think that's all I have.
Anyone else?
Well, at the risk of talking again, having talked too much already, Ms. Montage, I want to say that I think the idea of doing a video is a terrific idea to get across what we're going to do. And the last thing I want to say, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, we're going to do this turf field, we got to do it right. No cutting corners, because that's when students will get hurt, and I promise to remain vigilant on this to make sure that we do it right.
Thank you, Dr. Rubish. And lastly, I'd like to thank Mr. Fox, too, for all the time and dedication he's put in since he came on back in June. So, July, whenever it was. But you were doing a lot of work here in June for $1, I think. So I think you earned your money in June.
Did you ever see that $1?
But
I'm still waiting on the $1, sir.
I think I tried to hand it to you at one of the board meetings and you wouldn't take it. So With that said, is there anybody in the administration that can actually prove that his car leaves here at night? Because sometimes it's like 10 o'clock at night and you're still here working. He's doing something, right?
That's right.
All right, that's all I have. Is there any public comments on anything? All right, no public comments online either. All right, I'll ask for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned.